Excellent. Thanks so much, D'Angela. It's really great to be here with all of you. So I am an assistant professor of social work, and today I'm going to talk to you about my experiences of teaching online and my philosophy and some tips and ideas that may be helpful. Hopefully, most of us will be going back to our classrooms and we'll be able to remain in our classrooms, but I have a feeling that this teaching online and in hybrid formats is something that is going to be with us for the future. So I wanted to share some things that have been helpful to me and my students. And I'm just going to make you a little bit smaller so that I can see my PowerPoint. I always try my best to have my students in front of me so that I can see them. And I try at the beginning of the semester to help them with their technology and troubleshooting so that they can see all those faces too. I'm sure I'm not the only one that finds that it's really difficult to just talk to my camera. So having those live faces is really important to me. And once students figure out how to do it, they benefit as well. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about where I'm coming from and why I think it's important to talk about this. So I am a parent of a high schooler who had been schooling from home for, I think, nearly 2 full years. So all of those developmental experiences that they should have been experiencing, being exposed to peers, is something that they were missing out on. And I was very aware of that because we were literally 20 feet from each other at all times. I'm also a first generation college student, so I know what it's like to have to kind of figure out the college experience on your own and not have that kind of inherited wisdom, which I think is a challenge for a lot of our students. I'm a mental health professional, I'm a social worker, as well as a play therapist. And all of the work I do, whether it's research or clinical practice or teaching, is based on an attachment framework. So I just think relationship is important in everything, including the teaching and learning process. I was fortunate enough to had been teaching online for over 10 years before the pandemic happened. So the transition was not nearly as traumatic for me as it was for some of my colleagues. And but still, it brought challenges. And the specific course that I'm sharing some kind of ideas with you about is a theory course in social work, which tends to be one of the most how should I say it, like boring classes. It's not clinical practice. It's not that fun hands-on. Typically, it's kind of the more dry, of course, important and necessary, but it's a course that students don't generally look forward to in our social work curriculum. And the other thing that was really relevant is that the students who were in my course, most of them had never been to our college campus. They were transfer students who had studied at community colleges. They had all transferred in as juniors. Most of them planned to live on campus, and then they find themselves in this still staying at home and being alone in this new college environment. So the course, again, is human behavior in the social environment, which I don't really think is relevant to you folks, but I think that the online ideas will be helpful. So I wonder if you could just raise your hand or signal me in some way. Have you ever heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Yay. Okay, so some of you have, and I'm even more excited that some of you have not, because I love to be able to bring a new idea to you. So Maslow, actually, we think of it as his theory of needs or his ideas about needs. He was actually really interested in motivation. It was a theory of motivation. And basically, Maslow said that people aren't going to be motivated to achieve higher level needs unless their most basic level needs are met. And so the verbiage in the inside of the triangle were some of Maslow's ideas that we have to have our physiological needs met. We have to have, being medically well, being fed. We need to have safety. We need to have shelter, etc. So this is an image of Maslow's hierarchy as it applies to the teaching and learning process. And I really like this because it reminds us to pay attention to the human beings that are in our classroom, that they're not just coming in 100% ready to learn physics or to learn social work theory or to learn molecular science. They are human beings that have to have all of their other needs met before they can be ready to learn. And so things like, are they hungry? Do they have a consistent place to live? Do they have, and this is where I really focus in my teaching, is do they have relationships where they feel comfortable, where they feel connected, where they feel safe? Maslow said that those students aren't going to be motivated to learn and to achieve challenging academic outcomes if they don't have those relationships and that safety and that positive climate. And so everything that I'm going to share with you going forward is about what can we do as a teacher, especially as an online teacher, to form those relationships and those connections so that our students can be ready to learn. So this is a term that I just learned in the past year. Have you ever heard the term relational pedagogy before? D'Angela, I get to teach you something new that makes me so happy. So this idea that relationship is important in teaching and learning. There's a fancy term for it, and it's relational pedagogy. The idea that I am purposely, consciously, intentionally developing relationships because I know it is necessary to student development. I love it that we can now put a fancy term to it, and I can sound even more smart. So relational pedagogy, here are some of the basic ideas. That the teacher is responsible for developing relationships. Now, I want you to always remember that we're always maintaining appropriate boundaries. I'm not parenting. I'm not physically caring for my students. I'm not adopting them. I'm not having inappropriate relationships with them. I'm always maintaining appropriate boundaries. But I am genuinely connecting with them authentically, with sincerity. I appreciate them. I make an effort to get to know them as individuals. I make conscious effort to make them aware of my availability, when they can come to me, when I want to see them. I don't call my office hours anymore. I call them student drop-in hours, so they know that I want to be available to them. Always being empathic, even when there's conflict or when we disagree. Believing always in the importance of relationships and anticipating student needs. These are some of the basic ideas of relational pedagogy. We believe that safety facilitates learning, that it's good and it's appropriate to express emotion, to actually have an emotional connection with our students. That's going to facilitate their learning. We put a lot of effort into developing a good classroom climate. It's not just about content. It's not just about the ideas. It's about the feelings that we're having when we're together in the learning environment. Developing activities that are authentic, expressing verbally my caring for them, paying attention to nonverbal communication, sharing real life experiences, not only me sharing with them, but me encouraging them and facilitating them to give feedback so that they are a part of this interactive conversation. So quickly, I'm going to share some ideas of things that I do. I'm sure that you'll have many more ideas of things that you do, and I would love to hear those as well. So getting to know students and actually remembering them online is harder, right? When we're in the classroom and we're together, we just kind of absorb who they are and we get to know them. We have to put extra effort in when we're online. So things that I do are, I have index cards for every single class of mine. At the beginning of the semester, I write out my roster names, but then when we start meeting together, I'm writing down the correct pronunciation of their names. I'm writing down their pronouns because I'm asking that every single student. I start taking notes on their index cards of their interests, their experiences. So I remember which student had her basement flood during Ida. And I remember which student has a teenage child that is home because of COVID. I remember which student is positive for COVID so that I can express my concern in a private message when they log in. I do class dedications where students sign up for a class and they start our class session with sharing a picture of a loved one or somebody that they respect or appreciate, and they dedicate that class session to that person. And so they're sharing with us about themselves, about their culture, about their interests, about what's important to them. And it brings a sense of reverence to our classroom experience, which students really enjoy and respect. And I also start with do nows. This is something I picked up from my teenager learning at home for 2 years. The teachers would have them do nows, and it was basically a quick assignment on the PowerPoint as you come into class. Do now, tell us one thing that you're excited about. Do now, tell us one thing that you saw on the news that made you think of class. And that's a way for them to kind of share a little bit about themselves, what they're thinking about, what they're seeing, and connecting with each other. And I think it's really important to talk about relationship and to talk about how important it is for me to be able to see their faces, to let them know that as a professor, I want to connect with them emotionally, and I'm going to be a better professor if I can get to know them and they can get to know me. Letting them know that I want their cameras to be on as much as possible, but knowing that sometimes they need privacy. Letting them know that they are absolutely welcome to jump in at any point. They don't have to worry about interrupting, because sometimes in the Zoom format, it's hard to know when I can speak, and then sometimes that keeps them from speaking. Expressing genuine appreciation and concern. I'm literally happy every single time my students log into class, and I express that genuinely, and I think that makes them look forward to coming to class. They know somebody's happy to see them. So also to facilitate relationship, I think it's really important to have structure so that students know what to expect. This again fits into that safety. When are my deadlines? When are things due? My professor is consistent, clear and frequent communication, checking in. I hear a lot of colleagues have students have just like disappeared over the course of the semester because they're just out there and they kind of feel like they're on their own. So I make an effort, even though it takes more time and it takes more effort. Do I notice when students are missing class? I'll just send them an email, and it won't be, you have to be in class every week. It's, are you okay? I noticed you weren't there today. They come back, they tell me what's going on, and they feel like I care about them. So asking and listening to their preferences and their needs, encouraging relationship, not just with me, but also among the students. That was one of the really important things I saw with my teenager. They needed social contact. I knew my juniors who wanted to live on campus, who had no friends at this new college. They needed to develop social connections with each other. And I'll talk to you about how I did that. And then also having them connect about the content of the course as well. So ideas for eliciting input using polls. These are free. Any of the tools I share with you are free tools that you can find on the internet. And I am not a fancy tech person, so these are easy to use. I promise you. Poll everywhere and doodle poll. Just write them down, Google search them. They're easy to use and they're free. This is an example. In class, we had an opportunity to talk about a case example. I asked the students, what case would you prefer to talk about? You want to talk about a 4-year-old, a 46-year-old, or a 76-year-old? And in Poll Everywhere, they respond with text messaging. Our students are comfortable with text messaging more than we are. This is a way for them to give feedback and input. Here's another example. How do you think you did on the midterm? To be honest with you, I was so glad I did this because I knew that they did really poorly on the midterm. And to see this made me feel like, okay, they know. So we can talk about that. You didn't do well. What more do you need? And it's anonymous. So that helps them to feel like they can share more. You can also set it up so that they can share with names, but I like to do anonymous polls. Building peer relationships. I wanted my students to be able to have chit-chat conversations with each other, just like they do when they're on campus. So I asked them, would you be interested in being involved in a group chat that did not involve me? You don't want to talk to your teacher more, but do you want to talk to your classmates? Yes, they were all interested. I gave them the option actually through a poll of either using GroupMe or WhatsApp or regular text message. They responded on a poll. The majority said they wanted to do GroupMe. I had one student who volunteered to set it up. I was completely uninvolved, but now the students have a way to talk to each other, to say, hey, do you remember what Martinez said in class? What was our homework this week? Hey, has anybody seen this movie? Just to develop relationship and feel connected with each other. This is something that I'm going to do for all of my classes going forward, even when we're in person, because introverted students have told me that even when we're on campus, it's hard to connect and make friends. So this is something that I will continue to do. I don't know if any of you use online discussions where you write a question and a student writes responses back. I inherited classes that were written discussion boards, and I did not like them. I did not think they were dynamic or engaging. So I want to talk to you about Flipgrid. This is what the interface of Flipgrid looks like. This is another free tool that you can use very easily. So Flipgrid allows you to create video posts. So your students do not have to respond in an online written format. They can respond in a video format. D'Angela, can you tell me if you can see my Flipgrid video screen now?
Hi there, I'm Dr. Martinez, and I'm excited to be your instructor this semester, and I look forward to getting to know you.
Thank you.
Fun fact about me is that in addition to being a social worker, I'm also a play therapist. So often when you find me in my office, you will also find toys. For example, in my home office, I have some stuffed animals, including my moose.
Okay, so I find that let me share the right way. I find that students, if they're not worried about their grammar and their punctuation, they're actually getting involved in conversation in Flipgrid, and they're feeling like they're connected. Wow, okay. I recently learned about a group called the Relation-Centered Education Network. I'm not affiliated with the administration of the group, but I have joined on social media, and they are faculty in all different areas all over the world who are interested in this idea of the importance of relationship in teaching and learning in higher ed. So I would encourage you to look for them. And I appreciate you listening, and I would love to continue to connect with you. So feel free to email, and I hope that's been helpful to you.